Good morning, everyone. I would like to call this Operations Planning Committee meeting to order on Wednesday, March 9th at 9:05. First item on the agenda is approval of the February 9th minutes. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Seth, second?
I would have, second that. I read them.
Okay.
I wasn't here at the meeting.
Can I vote?
You can vote as long as you feel that they accurately represent what happened at the meeting.
Okay.
I can share the Board of Finance was kind of brief, so that's
Okay.
what, if that needs your approval.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. I'm fine.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Okay, I will go through my report. COVID, we continue to discuss it. Positivity rate went from 1.62% last week to 3.88% this week, which is still down from the January high of 17.57%. And we have a 91.3% vaccine, fully vaccinated rate. This past Saturday, we had a rally right here at Town Hall. It was organized by Dan Geller and was well attended by a bipartisan group of Darien residents and residents from other towns and Ukrainians from other towns and state leaders. And I want to acknowledge everyone that attended did so with the same goal in mind, which was to acknowledge the unjustified attack on Ukraine and its people that is continuing to cause tremendous suffering. Tonight there will be a DOT meeting at 6:00 p.m., a virtual meeting to provide information regarding the rehabilitation of bridge numbers 06821, which carries stormwater underneath 95. And construction is expected to begin in the spring of 2025. The state will cover the estimated cost of $1.8 million for the repairs. And after tonight's meeting, there is a 14-day period to submit questions or comments.
Monica, whereabouts on 95 is that?
Over by Maple Street. So the DOT did reach out to the immediate residents at a previous meeting, and tonight there will be a meeting with open to the general public.
Just to follow up, I don't mean to be naive, but where's Maple Street?
Over,
Off
That
of,
end or that end?
over there.
But there's a
Pink
flower
Heights.
shop.
Okay.
It's
Got it.
What
What-
Baker Park, maybe go down that street parallel to 95.
yeah, what Hecker, the other side from Hecker,
It
it's
comes
that
out
way.
at Hollow Tree, so it
Oh, right,
connects.
okay. Maple Street connects, goes this way, it's parallel.
Yeah,
Okay.
And I think all that information is on the website for the meeting tonight, the link to the
Okay.
meeting.
You got a
we've
lot of
been,
construction going on over there.
right, and here's more construction. The intersection improvement at Norotan and West has been in the works for years, and the bidding process has concluded. The lowest responsible bidder is Darien Construction out of Norwalk, and this project is funded by a $1.2 million LOTSIP grant. Frontier, you've probably seen there are a lot of trucks in town. Frontier continues to roll out its high-speed fiber optic internet service, which is a very big jump from its current service. It'll be a 500 over 500 megabyte versus right now a 9 over 90 megabyte. So it'll, the truck activity in town will be pretty heavy for the next couple of months, but the service will be worth it. And they are looking at about, hoping to sign up about 5,300 homes. So that's in phase 1. On March 1st, I toured the new building at 897 Boston Post Road and the property for sale on Great Island, the Ziegler property. The new Post Road structure will be a multi-use building with retail on the bottom floor and housing on the second, and it's expected to be occupied later this spring. And as for the Ziegler property, it's a beautiful location, but there are still many considerations to be studied. I have the Henley Duke Deneen is not able to join us today, so the Henley Homes Royal Building Committee is now in full swing with Chris Price as chairman. The committee will meet each Thursday in March, starting at 6 p.m. Agendas, minutes, and video recordings may be found on the town website, and TV 979 plans to air the meetings live. This Saturday, there is an annual tour of the school facilities for members of town boards and committees, and this starts at 8 o'clock at the middle school, Middlesex Middle School, and concludes at Oxridge at noon. On February 16th, I had the pleasure of addressing the Darien Men's Association at the DCA. I provided updates since my state of the town and answered questions on a variety of topics. I will let Dan, who is here, go over the budget. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Gina Bloom, the Executive Director at Home in Darien, for her dedicated work on behalf of Darien seniors over the last decade. She has submitted her letter of resignation effective March 23rd, and Gina will be assuming a similar role at Staying Put in New Canaan. On behalf of the Darien community, I want to wish her all the best. I'm happy to announce that the Darien Police Department will have its first female captain. The Darien Police Commission announced the promotion of Lieutenant Allison Hoodmy to the rank of captain effective March 20th, 2022. That's my report. Thank you. Next, we will ask Dan to give a report on Board of Finance.
Okay, our last Tuesday, the Board of Finance met and received the budgets from the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen, and our review process is underway. We had a public hearing last night. Unfortunately, there was only one attendee who spoke. We do have 4 meetings coming forward that are budget work sessions that all include public comment, and we have then we have our vote on April 5th. So there are multiple future opportunities for the public to comment as they so desire. I think there's a sense that some of the comment will follow some of our deliberation rather than precede our deliberation.
Okay.
Which is not allowed, right?
Pardon?
Which is not allowed?
What's that?
No.
You can come in after deliberation?
The public comment, so not during the meeting, but for example, if we have a meeting next week, and then at the ensuing meeting, someone could comment on what they heard in the prior meeting. Our public comment is the first item on our agenda, not the last item on our agenda. If that's what you're asking.
No.
Oh, okay.
You deliberate. Is there public comment after your deliberations?
During a meeting, the public comment is the first item on the agenda, then we discuss the budget. At the ensuing meeting, the public would have the opportunity to comment on what they heard at our prior meeting.
Got it. Okay.
So we'll be reaching out to the RTM budget partners. We've got a list of names from Jack on F&B, and we
Right.
have to sort through the right names on the respective committees. Our first work session is the 15th, but I think the first discussion of a town department is the 22nd. So we've got almost 2 weeks to kind of coordinate our questions and get them to Kate and Jen.
It's great to have the engagement.
Thank you.
Because I think in the long run,
I agree.
it makes things in May go much, much more smoothly.
Right.
A lot of the topics have been put on the table and discussed openly, and it's a little change from, I won't call them the good old days, we'll just call them the old days. And the dialogue that goes on now is really important and very, very helpful to the whole process.
Well, we're committed to that, and I know the RTM is committed to that as well.
Yeah, we appreciate the way that things have changed so that department heads are not kind of in an ongoing cycle of people showing up, asking them questions about the budget, funneling them through Jen and I, makes the process go a whole lot smoother for everybody.
The town did successfully issue 30 million and change of bonds since the last OPC meeting. I actually didn't know I was coming to this meeting until I don't have those details. Jen has those details, but we did issue those bonds, and it was a little bit higher interest rate than what we had expected, but that was a result of the market. I think it was considered to be a very successful offering. I think there were 9 bids, and the second bid was very tight to the winning bid, which is a good sign of the demand and the liquidity for our debt.
Dan, they were 20-year?
Yes, they were
Do you
20.
remember the rate?
I think it was 235.
I think you're right, yeah.
I think it was 235. I think we thought it was going to come at 225. So it wasn't like a major
Right.
delta to expectations. And then finally, at Tuesday's meeting, we will vote on the ARPA funding request. We reviewed that, had some dialogue with that last week at our meeting, and then we have scheduled discussion and vote next Tuesday. That's it.
No, thank you. Next, we will hear from Steve. Are
Okay,
you ready?
thank you for having me. Sorry I missed the last couple, but my protege was here.
Always good to see you.
It's good to see you too. What I did for my report is just do a laundry list of what's going on in town. I can rip through them really fast because there's about 15 things on the list. And you
Sure.
can stop me when you want to. If you really want, I can to you too.
Thank you.
And this goes back to probably the beginning of the year for the first quarter, but we'll figure it out. Last night, we voted to extend the outdoor dining and outdoor fitness for the restaurants and fitness clubs that want it for another year. That sunsetted already this year. The application first came through for Bodega and the Goose, but it extends to other people that did outdoor dining. And a couple examples I'll give you are Rory's had outdoor dining, Nino's Pizza had outdoor dining, and also Giovanni's had outdoor dining. And then some of the fitness clubs, like Dynamic Fitness, which is not around anymore, had it. The one inside the bottom of Palmer's had it, and then Vibe had it. So all that stuff is going to get extended again for another year, for another season. Relative to the restaurants, there's other hoops that they have to jump through. And with regards to tents, they have to, if they're gonna have a tent outside, that has to get signed off by the building department. If they're gonna have liquor outside, they might have to get signed off by the state liquor authority, which was last year. Last year, we also had the health department sign off on it, which was a state regulation. I don't know if that's gonna be the case this year, because the health department, they signed off on it last time, was really because of the 6 feet distance between the tables. I think the other ones were the tape measures. The next item on my list is the BMW project. The car wash building is basically finished. That was the first phase of the project. They built a car wash building which is not visible from the street. It's way in the back behind the fence when you go into the property. The second piece of that puzzle is the old car wash and the other service building goes into the new car wash building. Then they can knock down the other service building and rebuild that. And when they knock down that service building, they can knock down the other things. So that's really a 3-phase project. The other big thing that I'm really excited about is the new entrance to from Darien to Stanford is finally finished. The bridge at Giovanni's is done. That thing was under construction for 3 years. Created a lot of traffic. It gave a little bit of problems to the business up there, but that's finally finished, and it looks beautiful entrance to Darien from the city of Stanford. The next item is 34 Old Kings Highway. That was a small little white old house building. There was an office building that was purchased by Baywater Properties. That building was torn down, rebuilt. It opened for business. The tenant moved in, which is actually Baywater Properties, at the end of February, after they got their building permit. So they are in their new building. They moved out of 36 Old Kings Highway. They were in the basement. So now they have a rooftop terrace, which is the second one approved in town, that overlooks the entire project, that overlooks the parking lot. And there's some public open space on the front side of that, which connects with the other building, which is kind of cool. I think they did a great job. The only thing that's missing on that building is the outside skin. You can't put the skin on the building during this weather because it's raining, and if you put the skin on it, you're gonna trap in the moisture. So they have to wait till dry days before they can put the skin on, but they moved into the building and got their C of O.
Steve, what's skin?
The siding.
Siding.
The clapboard, it's, if you look at the 2 buildings, which is 36 and 34, 36 has got like aluminum siding, it's anodized aluminum siding that goes vertical. I'm pretty sure it goes vertical. That same image, or that same siding is going to be on 34. The buildings are really close together, so they actually look like one building. There is some access way and easements the town got. Maybe you're up to speed on that. There's a public access way to get into it. One of the things that we discussed, and this is probably 9 months ago, is signage. Because we want to be able to have signage for people to get to the parking. Right now, the sign to get to the parking lot is a little, it's like a 8 by 10 sign. This is green, it's green, it says a P on it for parking, and that's how people get directed in there. I would like to see if you have this grant money to put the big signs when you come off I-95 that says like, welcome to Darien Library this way, that way, and put something like that in those locations. I've already discussed it with David Generese. They changed the in and out on those things a couple different times during construction, but that's something that we really need to do because there's a lot of parking downtown. People don't know how to get there, and the signage of the parking entrances is not too good. So that's something we have to look into. The next item on my list is the building that Monica just spoke about a little bit ago, which is 1897 Boston Post Road. It's a really beautiful building. It's the Vacaro's building that's at the top of Ringtown Road. I think they did a fantastic job with the exterior of it. ARB was very, very excited when it was first proposed. And what they said they were gonna build, they build, and it looks really beautiful. We did approve the first tenant in there. It's gonna be, I'm pretty sure it's a kitchen designer on the ground floor. The other half is available for lease still. There's a total of 5 apartments in the building. One of them is affordable. They're trying to get, as Monica said, their temporary certificate of occupancy or their certificate of occupancy for those 5 apartments in March, but I really think it's gonna be April. So you should have people moving in there in April. How they're gonna do the one affordable unit, that's really not their business model, is yet to be determined, but there's a process to go through. I'm not the expert on the process, but we have people that are in the Darien Housing Authority that know it. Town Hall, Jeremy knows that, their team knows it a little bit, but you know, the other bigger companies like the Avalons of the world or the Darien Housing Authorities of the world, they're the ones that really vet it out too. So that's something they have to figure out. I'd like to get that unit occupied as soon as possible and make sure it's done right. The next item on my list is 1020 Post Road. At the end of last year, they got their new pergola put in the back of the building, so that's finally outdoor dining is set. I think they're going to be open for Easter, so for Easter Sunday, I'd call them to get your reservations now, because they usually fill up for Easter Sunday. That's a really beautiful thing. They came to Town Hall, or they came to P&Z to make their outdoor dining permanent. It's all on their property, whereas the bodega and the Goose, they have to go back to the first selectman to get that approval for theirs. I don't ever think that's going to be permanent because that is town-owned land. But I think the 1020 came out perfect. There are some new tenants in downtown Darien. As usually happens at the end of a year, tenants do close their businesses. And because if they wait to get through the holiday season, some new tenants are in town. But right now, I think we have 1 or 2 vacant storefronts in town, which is, I went through Westport and I went through Greenwich last week and New Canaan last week. Those towns, those 3 period towns of ours really still have not come back. We're doing a big deal up in Westport now. There's activity up there, but it's a whole new landscape for those towns. And I hope they can figure it out too.
So are you saying that we're doing well in terms of the vacancies or poorly?
I think we're doing great.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, typical vacancy is somewhere about 5 or 10%. Westport and Greenwich and New Canaan, their central business district for retail, are higher. As an example, I'll get into a little bit later, David Genovese's first phase 1 of the Corbin District is all pre-leased. I don't have the percentage of what's going on pre-leased over at Federal, but they're off to the races. And relative to Palmer's, I'm going to get to that in a minute, the Goddard School, which has got approved, that's also pre-leased, and that's more than half of their commercial space. So yes, we're doing good. And the fact that new tenants came in, is another thing to replace the ones that went out. And some of that happened in a week. The next item on my list is Darien Place, which is effectively known as the old Darien Playhouse. The Kennedy Barbershop store is open. La Taqueria is doing their internal construction work. They should open in short order. And there's another lighting store in there that faces towards the Darien Sport Shop. That tenant is in place, but it's a lighting store. They're not open yet. They still have the paper on the walls. The good thing about La Tecria, that's another project that was done by the Vaccaro family. They have the foresight to look at the use again, and they asked the tenant to put in a soundproof ceiling above and beyond what they were supposed to do. If you've ever been inside Bodega at night, and my daughters hang out at Bodega at night, it is really, really loud. The upstairs of that building is an office building, so there's nobody upstairs. If La Tecria has the same success, you're gonna want a soundproof ceiling. That's why they're delayed, because they stopped what they're doing to the soundproof ceiling, and then they're back on the schedule.
Steve, is there an apartment above there?
In that building, I'm gonna get, that's my next sentence. There are 4 apartments in that building. All 4 apartments are leased, and one of the tenants already moved into the building. And many of you may know the tenant that moved into the building. But that's been deemed as a very successful project. All the sidewalks are done, all the outdoor landscaping is done. The building looks great. If you have also, we had a meeting last year about it, the sidewalks. I would love to extend the sidewalks from that building all the way down to Squat Lane. So if the Board of Finance has any money to put in the sidewalk budget, we got some place to put it. So with that, your
Make a
budget.
note of that.
Thank you.
We've got excess money everywhere, right?
I
Kate?
figured you did. With $100 million, you gotta have something someplace for a little bit of sidewalks. We're getting the landlords to do it. The next item on my list is the Palmer's project. That project went through 2 different redesigns. We're on the 3rd redesign now. It was fully approved about 2 weeks ago. The biggest change in there is there's gonna be 3-bedroom apartments. I think he's got it right. There's gonna be 3-bedroom apartments at the project, which is a change in the zoning code. We had to change the zoning code to allow 3-bedroom apartments. There's also the parking that was going to be underground is now in a parking structure in the back, which is really just it's really just a parking deck where there's parking underneath and there's apartments above and there's common area space above. So that was a change, and then the big change was we allowed daycare in that zoning district by special permit. So first we allowed the daycare in the zoning district, which is the NB zone, which is the only zone in town. And then after that, we went through a traffic study, redesign of their circulation and their sidewalks. And then they got the approval to put the special permit for the Goddard School. The cool thing about this Goddard School, it is 10 classrooms for young children that are from the ages of, I'm going to say, 6 months to 6 years, which is your, what do you call it, ELP program. There's going to be, I think it's set for 156 kids. It's something that's been in demand in Darien for a long time. So we have a landlord and tenant that are building 10 classrooms in town, which is different from the net classroom that we got up at Ox Ridge that costs us a lot of money, and there's some ELP people.
Can I ask a question about that?
Of course you can.
So the traffic that's coming in and out of there, you just said there's a traffic study. I
Yep.
think about coming down Hollow Tree Ridge at the wrong time in the morning or in the afternoon when Middlesex is jammed all up.
Yep.
How is all that gonna, how do you envision all that flowing?
The big traffic time, what they call it is called peak period. The peak period is about 15 minutes on what it's going to be. I used to commute on the train, and the train was at 10:31. I'm sorry, at the 7:31 train out of Northern Heights. I did it for a few years, and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. That's when the school was at the same exact time.
Right.
What we did is we redesigned the driving to go into it. Instead of, they were supposed to come in effectively, you would come off Hollow Tree Ridge Road, make a left and make another left where the donut store used to be. We moved that entrance all the way down to the other end. So if you're gonna go in off of Hollow Tree Ridge Road, you have to go in down closer to Valvalas, then make,
Wow.
which actually not Valvalas, but it's gonna be where the entrance to Palmer's is, the second one on the other side
Yeah.
of Wells Fargo. Go in there, then go to the back of the project, go through the parking deck underneath, then go to the front of the building. And then when you exit out, you're gonna exit out where the donut shop was. So there's a legitimate queuing line
Yeah.
that goes the entire way. The 2 things that the
So
traffic.
that takes it off Hollow Tree.
Correct.
Right, it pushes
Correct.
it off.
I'm getting calls too.
Oh, I'm sure you will. Linda Santarelli used to live on Sutton Place, and my friend right here lives on Sutton Place.
I have scars
I know
on my
it very
cheek
well.
from Santarella still. I have to just kind of.
The, that was, my father-in-law lives down the block, I live on that street, I drive through there every single day. It was a key to, I don't know why the engineer didn't do it the first time, but we did redesign for it, that's why
Right.
we look at these things.
Yeah.
The other thing that the engineers did is, when they did their traffic study, like I said, I think it's 156 kids in 10 classrooms. They assumed the worst-case scenario, that every single kid goes to the school, drives a car. They also, there's a little bit of a ratio where some kids.
Steve, the 6-month-old to 6-year-old drives a car.
Get dropped off by
They're
the.
one car
There's
for every kid.
156 cars for 156 kids, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The change, I like it. I was making sure you catch it.
You know, I wanted
That's
to
a whole
just-
different kind of
I thought that's what you meant.
traffic study, right?
There is a factor in there, a sibling factor. So it doesn't go from 156 down to half of that, which is what, 78? Because people they think there's gonna be 2 kids there. It doesn't go there, but there is a factor there, so they don't assume 156 cars. It's, for argument's sake, we'll say it's 120. What they did not do is, next to that project is a brand-new apartment building across the street with 122 units.
Right.
Above that building is a brand-new apartment building with 60 units. Across the street from that, over at Avalon, is the Avalon complex, which has got 189 units. They did not assume anybody walks there. They did not assume that anybody from Sutton, Patton, I always call you
It's
Sutton.
close, that's close.
Same people. They didn't assume that anybody from Patton Drive walks there. They assumed everybody drives there.
Okay.
So it
it's
is
like
a worst-case scenario.
All
Which
right.
I was like, how do you not do that? Like, we didn't do it, we assumed worst case, and it still worked on the worst case. I would venture to guess that there's gonna be a significant percentage of people that walk there. So what we focused on was strollers and sidewalks. Because there was a little bit of ramping and whatnot. I want some to be able to safely go from Avalon, across the street, over the bridge, across there, onto the property where the liquor store was, and then be able to walk into the school with a stroller.
Yeah.
And there was a big discussion on the other end, if they're coming from where Valvallis is, if you guys recognize the sidewalks, and that's why I'm asking you for money for sidewalks, and I'm dead serious. There's a bunch of pieces where the sidewalk stops. If you go from
Yeah.
Citibank, it starts, it stops,
Right.
it
Yeah,
starts,
sure.
it stops,
Yeah.
it starts, it stops. Federal's doing their part, Palmer's is doing their part, there's 3 pieces in the middle where there is no sidewalk. So if on Sundays, if we go down there, you see young people with strollers, and I was in the stroller day for a while, it's like, you know, it's not fun, because it's not set up like that. So the town's got to pitch in and do part of their part, because we're getting developers to do their part. I want a smooth sidewalk, and we can't do that.
Do we know whether that's part of Ed's
So-
sidewalk?
The new sidewalk portion of the budget does include funding for sidewalks actually on the other side of Heights Road, so by the depot, so that the thought was commuters who now, take their chances and walk the
Right.
road. I don't know that they've discussed it. I just made a note that Ed and Jeremy need to
Yeah.
talk about those 3 sections where we would have to look at putting something in.
And I was in Greenwich last week, and we've talked about this before, and I don't know if you were part of this conversation or not, but that's why we have these meetings. In Greenwich, they have stamped asphalt, okay? Stamped asphalt is effectively a sidewalk. It doesn't cost a whole lot, and it's red. It looks like brick. We have stamped brick sidewalks between Uncle's Deli and Sugar Bowl. There's a concrete,
Oh, yeah.
there's a brick sidewalk there. That's the
Yeah.
only one we have in town. Those slow down people and they give you sidewalks, because what you have to figure out is, what are you gonna put in front of Sandra's Cleaners, Innovative Invitations, Leary Liquors, and then that black parking lot? Then you cross the street and you go in front of Epic Computer and the Christian Science Street. Those
Yeah, because
sidewalks are terrible.
you can't put a sidewalk in front of that string of stores and block the
Agreed, but you
parking.
could put it in stamped asphalt.
Yeah, I'll bring it up with Ed.
That's exactly what they have in Greenwich, New Canaan, Stanford's all over Stanford, and we have it in our own town.
I think you still have to worry about, if we do that, are we taking on a liability that we are encouraging people to walk along there where they, where people are parking and backing up. So I
where
think
do
we
they
have to.
walk- Where do they walk down?
I don't know,
So
but-
if I'm
but
at
the-
Citibank and I'm going to Palmer's, what do I do?
I don't know. I don't know. But there's a difference
Get in the
between
car.
our encouraging them to do that by putting in
Exactly.
stamped asphalt, which would lead you to believe it's a sidewalk and it's safe. It's why we don't have unprotected crosswalks, or try not to put unprotected crosswalks in, because you're actually more at risk in an unprotected crosswalk because you, the pedestrian, think that you're safe. And there's no obligation on the part of the driver or no warning for the driver to stop. And I'd be concerned that we don't open ourselves up to liability by putting in the stamped crosswalk behind a place where people are gonna be backing up.
Yeah,
So,
that's why you're
lots
in
of-
risk management and I'm not. But I would tell you now, they're doing it anyway.
Yes, but.
So that's
but-
in the
but, yeah,
town
but
right
that,
away.
our liability may be a lot less in those instances because we haven't encouraged them to do it,
Okay,
so.
so the town right away. Great.
One thing I noticed is.
I mean, that's up for you guys to figure out.
Yeah.
I'm just talking from a planning perspective and from a zoning and planning perspective, that's what we should have.
I agree,
And
I
that's what we
understand,
want.
I
And it's
understand.
required on the post road. If anyone wants to do a renovation on the post road, they have to put in monoblock sidewalk. But there's no development going on at Epi Computer and the Christian Science
No.
Reading Room and Bob Oliver's and everything, and there's no sidewalk there. We want to make it a walkable, drivable town, so that's my ask, and I'm dead serious relative to the budget. I don't know how much is in there, but
Well, it's already, been purposed.
Yes.
So we would have to, I think there has to be a conversation about whether it makes sense to do it per your comments, and if so, how would it be done, how much would it cost?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
we'd have to figure out when to take that up, and
Well,
that's
and the-
really
yeah.
a Board of Selectmen decision first, right?
Yes.
And the, the
I
budget
did that.
is listed, it's new sidewalks, it doesn't say new sidewalk Heights Road. So, there is flexibility within that budget to be spent on where new sidewalks need to go.
When would you, I know you did you have a question first, Seth?
well, let me interrupt for
Go
1
ahead.
second. I have had this conversation in certain parts of town with Ed Gentile, because he has, and I don't know how you guys budget, but I assume it's like, because I'm going to read the paper, it's like
You
we
don't
did
read the budget.
18 miles of roads, right? So you do 18 miles of roads and 10 miles of sidewalks.
There's X amount every
That's a
year
fungible-
approved.
Yeah,
Right.
there's
Right, so you
there's,
can move it
so like
around.
there's $700,000 in the budget for renovation of existing
Right.
sidewalks. And that's based on a formula, they have places that need it, but then you're looking at how many square feet or square
Linear
yards
feet,
is
yeah.
it, and what's the cost per unit.
Yep. No, because Ed and I went over that. For some reason, he can do a linear foot of sidewalk cheaper than anybody I've ever met. And that's his job.
And it's his job.
I'm sorry.
I just noticed the other day, high volume of kid traffic coming up and down Hollow Tree Ridge going up to Middlesex. I didn't realize it, but there's a lot of kids coming over both those bridges and going and walking.
Yeah.
And so, that's gonna be an important thing.
Yeah,
And I noticed last week a lot of kids walking Heights Road. And on either side without a sidewalk, right? They were walking back and forth for after school, going to Vivant, whatever it was. but
Walking to the depot.
Walking to
from
the
middle
depot,
school.
Yeah.
et cetera. So when would you expect this to be needed, date-wise? When these developments are in a place where we're going to have an increase in
Yes.
perhaps a desire for pedestrian?
Yeah. I mean, but
When would that-
the desire's already there. I'm going to say, July of 2023.
Okay.
The desire's already there.
Right, no, I
We-
understand, but
we-
that's kind of when the developments
Mhm.
will be in place, and we're going to see. And
Federal will be in place by
This
the
summer.
opening of the school year
Right.
for 2022.
right, this year.
This year.
Right.
Palmer's is at least 6 months to a year and a half behind that.
Okay.
That's why I'm pushing it back.
All right, I'm trying to figure out as a budget matter,
Yeah,
when,
yeah.
how we can address this.
Then you can put in this year's budget, if you got budget, you can do Grove Street tomorrow. Grove Street is the same issue.
Well, the sidewalks.
But that's not my,
Yeah.
that's not my, it's not my,
Right.
purview.
There's a matrix for how the sidewalks
Yeah.
are filled, and the new sidewalks that are in the budget for this year are connecting places where there is a sidewalk and then there's a gap. But it could be definitely looked at again, so
that'd be
we
fantastic.
will do that.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. What was I gonna say? Great, I'll think of it, I don't know what it was. All right, next, the Corbin District. The Corbin District is firing on all cylinders. They have their full foundation in for, I'm gonna call it the east side of Corbin Lane. Building, what I call Building 1 is up and going. They call that Building K. It's effectively and dearly known as the Tibbetts Building. The middle building is dearly known as the Compass Building. And then the corner building with the old gas station is known as the Bank of America Building. The Tibbetts Building should be open in October. The Tibbetts Building will be open in October. The ground floor tenants in the Tibbetts Building is a dry cleaner and bobbles. And that building will have 4 apartments in the upper floor. If you remember, all the affordables for the Corbin District, or 95% of the affordables for the Corbin District were done on East Lane, and that building's got 12 units, of which 10 are developmentally disabled people, and then two affordable employees that work there. That's how that was designed. So the Corbett's building's done. The next building, or the next 2 buildings are gonna be the, like I said, I think the next one going up, it's gonna be Bank of America. That building will have 10 apartments in it. And then the middle building, which is the Compass Building, will have 24 apartments in it. There was a memo that was sent to, I think, the Board of Education on February 9th of this year. Yeah, to the Board of Education, February 9th of this year, detailing all that stuff. It's not really, date-wise, but those are the dates. They're doing great. Then after that, the east side of Corbin Lane gets done, then other tenants gonna move over. I think the toy man, he's moving to the other side of the street, and then I think he's moving back. But I'm really concerned about what's gonna open next and what's gonna open now, and we can talk about other stuff, because we have these meetings once a month.
Steve, go back, so October for Tibbetts.
Yep.
Compass when? Compass is the second?
I think Compass is a third. I think Compass is in the middle.
Okay. And how many, or what's the timeline there?
That should be, where is this? That's gonna be January 2023. Again, the one relative thing, and I was gonna say this earlier, but I can obviously say it now. In the commercial retail world, if you can't move in by October 1st, you don't open up until February 1st. Because it's a dark period. If you're gonna get your widgets for sale, especially like a dry cleaner or your equipment, you need to be in by October 1st. So then it becomes a dark period. So relative to the other buildings, like the toy shop and all those other guys, Bobbles will be in place in October for the holiday season. And then it's gonna go dark, and then the other 2 buildings are supposed to open up in January of 2023.
So both Bank of America and Compass are January?
Yes. Yes. The other cool thing about the Corbin District, they did lease 2 more spaces. They signed a sushi bar, which for Corbin, which is something that was really asked by the town people, because we don't have a sushi bar in town. That's news to me, but my kids like sushi too. It's a tenant that's coming from Greenwich, and they also got an Italian market coming to that project too. Mr. Genovese has got a bunch of other tenants that he's talking to, but he can make the announcements better than I. I think it's more him than me to be able to do stuff like that. So that's moving great. So effectively, Corbin, if you include 34 Old Kings Highway, they've built 2 buildings in the last 6 months. And the roof is going on the Tibbetts building right now. It's all topped out. And so far, I've heard no negative effects of any traffic, anything at all that ever hit my desk. I don't know if it's any of your desks, but I'm usually the last person to hear from them. Next, with regards to the federal project, Building 1, which is what I call Building 1, that's not what they call it. It's the building in the back that faces West Avenue. That building's been topped off, the windows are in, the roof is on, there's a 95% of the siding is on. That building is due to open on September 1st, or maybe in August for the apartments. That building's gonna have 58 apartment units in it, and 8 of those apartments are affordable. Building 2 is gonna have 64 apartments, so there's gonna be a total of 124 apartments there. Building 2's been topped off, the windows are not in, the siding's not in, and the roof is only being started. that will have, like I said, 64 apartments and 8 affordables in that one. The leasing office for the commercial space, the apartments, is gonna open up on April 1st, which is what, 3 weeks from now? It's, the leasing office is inside 40 Heights Road, which is, you get all this, right?
I am.
I can tell. The leasing office is 40 Heights Road, which is where the Citibank building is, and Edward Jones is in there on the 2nd floor. They're gonna also do model apartments, which they call mock-up apartments, inside the building, which are under construction now, inside the first building, which is the West Avenue building, so people can see it. They're gonna request from the fire department, which has really got nothing to do with us, to have hard hat tours of the apartments of the model in that building, because it's still under construction. I can tell you that there will probably also be a virtual leasing office. We worked on a project up in Fairfield where they had no leasing office, everything was done virtually. And at least some of the apartments that they did, that building was, I think it was 100 units, they did it in 3 phases of leasing. The second phase leased up in a week. That's Fairfield.
So Steve, the leasing hasn't started?
Starts April 1st.
Okay, so you said 95% signing?
95% of the siding
Siding, okay,
Siding.
sorry, okay.
is on the building in the back. Some of the retail tenants were already announced in there. There is in the what they call the Jewel Box building, which is directly across the street from Citibank, which is on the opposite side of the driveway. That building is going to be a coffee shop, which is a coffee shop out of Fairfield. It's got a really fancy name. I don't remember it. There's also going to be a pizza restaurant in there, which is already announced, a nail salon, which is already announced, an Italian restaurant, which is already announced, and I don't know if I have the other tenant yet. There's a 4th tenant that's in there.
Ice cream.
Yeah, the ice cream shop, yeah, out of Fairfield. Yep, so people know
Dan
these
has
things.
priorities.
The ice cream was very dear to who? Somebody really, it was you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think somebody really wanted the ice cream. Let me see what else they have in there. Yep, that's good. They want to have people, they are taking phone calls now for apartments in there. Those apartments inside that building are a mix of 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. The thing that's odd about it is, and they did it on purpose, the 2-bedroom apartments do not have a tub. If you go into most apartment buildings, one usually has a stand-up shower, and the other one usually has a tub, so you can bathe your little kid in the tub. They purposely did not put in apartments with tubs. So I guess if you want to bathe your kid in the tub.
Talking to the Board of Education,
Yeah,
I see,
exactly.
I
That's,
got you.
It's not, they did it on purpose. You know, I know Malona with Broome is gonna do their study. I don't know when their study is gonna launch or not. If
That's
it's
the
October.
enrollment, that's a
Yeah.
future enrollment study, right?
I
Yeah.
believe in October.
Yeah, maybe they can do it, yeah, by October, it should be fully leased, is my guess. It really shouldn't take more than 4 months to lease 58 apartments, but you never know. There is definitely demand for housing. The back side of that is, and make sure Malone McBroom knows, is that people like, you know, my father-in-law, who was 80 years old, moves into the building. He's gonna let him sell his house, which is a 4-bedroom house.
Mhm.
That's where the kids are gonna go.
Yeah.
Right.
So the kids aren't necessarily going into
Yeah.
Federal and Palmer's and Corbin. The backfill is gonna get the kids. I mean, I've got 4 kids at my house. If I move out, there's gonna be another 4 kids that move into my house, you know? So that's where the numbers come
Are
from.
these all rentals across all 3 properties?
Phase 1 of Corbin is all rentals. Phase 2 of Corbin, which is the other side of the street, which is the triangle piece, the big piece of land,
Yep.
that's gonna have a condo component to
Okay.
it.
Thanks.
And that is also something that is very, very consistent in the marketplace. Randy Salvatore is a big developer in Stanford. He does a lot of projects in Stanford, Westchester, and now he just moved across the street, across the river to New Jersey. Half of his projects that he builds, and he usually builds like, 300 at a clip, 200 at a clip. He does it 50% condos, 50% rentals. It's a way to lower your basis when you do it. And that's the way the world is today.
Steve, so going back to the rental office opens on April 1st, but you're saying that they might,
They're taking phone calls now.
okay, and when you believe that the building 1 will be fully occupied by the start of school?
Yes,
Do you believe building 2 also?
no.
Okay, so what's the timeline?
I would say building 2 is 6 months behind.
Okay.
The windows are not even in building 2 yet.
Okay.
The building 2's, building 1's in the back, and that's where there's, if you look at Walgreens,
Mhm.
there's a set of stairs next to Walgreens that goes up and over to get you from the Walgreens parking lot over to West Avenue. That staircase is done. It's closed today as a construction site because there's a lot of staging in there, and there's a handrail that has to go in there. I've asked them a couple different times to open up that staircase so we can get people coming from McGuan Field, like in the summertime or the springtime, after they have whatever, they can go over the bridge and get an ice cream at Linda's Ice Cream Spot.
That's right.
You know, it's a small town, it's a personal town, that's what we want. David Genevieve's got a sushi bar because
Yeah, they
people
have
ask
the
him to.
sushi.
So Steve, just one more time. So
Uh-huh.
March for the second building.
March, I would
23.
say yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and at the same time, some of the other buildings will come online. So the second semester of the school year, which is gonna be January that's how you do it, January 2023, you may have another wave of kids that come in.
When
I
you-
just want you guys to be fully prepared, and there's no surprises.
Steve, is it only in the one building where the 2 bedrooms don't have tubs?
I think both of those, there's the two buildings, there's one's got 50, one's got 64.
Yep.
They don't have, I don't think there's tubs in any of them.
Okay.
The apartments that are going into Corbin, the 2 bedrooms there, they do have tubs?
They will have tubs. But that's, in Corbin Phase 1 is only 38 units.
Yeah,
You know, you're gonna get 4 units as of October.
yeah.
You're gonna get 10, you know, in January, and then you might have another 24 in January.
The
Right,
one-
that's where the other.
3 different, 3 different buildings.
3 different buildings.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then you also have Vacaro's 5 over at the Billy Monica talked about, which is 1897.
Right.
And then you have Vacaro's 4 at Darien Place. To my knowledge, there's all adults that live in Darien Place, but there's no school-age kids. But I don't know if a couple from Manhattan moved in there and they have an infant. But they would end up going, I mean, that's a Goddard school, that's a Montessori school person, you know, goes on. That's why I'm here to answer questions. I really want to be able to answer all of them.
Okay, so staying with tubs, so the 1 bedroom at Federal, no tubs, right?
No tubs.
How many 3 bedroom at Palmer's?
4,
And how many total there?
60.
60 at Palmer's?
Yeah.
And what's the affordable?
It is 12%, I forget the number of units, I think they rounded up.
12%?
12% of 60 is the number.
Now, all of that goes through the housing authority?
No.
No,
No, it's up to them.
no, it's up to them. Like Avalon has their own personal division to do the affordable housing component. In Avalon, I think there's 37 affordables. Avalon's got 47 affordables. So they have their own list, their own formula, their own way. I mean, it's a huge national company.
Yeah, I knew that, yeah.
The other companies do have it too. People like the Vaccaro family, which is really a small business, they've got, I think up now, they're up to maybe 15 apartments. None of them are affordable.
Mhm.
You know, so this one that they're doing in 1897 is the first affordable they ever had. So we have two.
So each of these developers has their own affordable section or group that manages that part of the business?
Yes, Federal has their own affordable group. They know the rules backwards and forwards. They have a dedicated staff that takes care of it. How they do David Genovese, all of his affordables are off-site. They gave that mantra over to Abelis. So that's where they're putting their first form, which is their 12 units. So he's already done. I'm 99% sure that all those tenants moved in already. David still has to give us 2 more affordables. It's either 2 or 4 affordables over at Corbin District. But he already did a lot of his work. The one thing that is you have to make sure of is you have to get your C of O's for your affordables before you get your C of O's for your market rates. You can't. I mean, they did
Yeah,
that trick.
okay,
In
yeah, all right.
They did that trick in New York City. You know, when you build your market rate, we'll get the affordables, we'll be done with them next year. It doesn't work that way. And David Genovese did exactly what he was supposed to do. But the other, relative to the Palmers, the other 2 buildings, which are Roost and Pure Bar. Is it Pure Bar? Oh, yeah, it's Pure Bar, not Bar Theory.
Yeah.
Those two buildings have 4 apartments in each building. It looks like one building, it's one project, but it's really 2 approvals in 2 different buildings. There's 4 and 4. The trigger is 4 units. If you do 4 or more, you have to put in an affordable unit. That's why 1897 is 5 units and they have 1 affordable mix, which is 20% affordable. So in his portfolio, in their portfolio, that's the only one apartment they have.
But when he did the 4 and 4, it wasn't triggered at 4, correct?
Correct. He did 4 at Danny's Bicycle Shop, 4 at Pure Bar, and then 4 over at Darien Playhouse. So of those 12, it was never triggered. Right, now he's doing the other one, and we basically asked him and said, can you give us an affordable? He said, sure. And that's why we got the affordable there. Okay, any other questions on affordable or Corbin?
I just had a comment. It's late in the game, but it's just a comment, something you couldn't figure out until everything was built. But building 1 is huge. In that neighborhood, that place it's like its own town.
I'm glad you had said that, because that was also on my list too, and it was on the back side. No, that's not.
I'm sorry, I got you before you got to page 2.
It's fine. It's on my list. Building 1, which is in the back, which is over at West Avenue, when that thing came up for approval, we had them actually lower the height of the building by about 3 feet. So the building came down. You're supposed to be in scale on West Avenue, and the building came down. We also had them redesign a little bit of Walgreens to make sure you couldn't see cars in the street when you put the cars on the parking deck. Building 2, which is the one that's behind Valvallis and Sanders Kitties, you have to remember that is in a flood zone. I was going to pull the flood map for
I didn't
today.
bring up building 2. I didn't want to do
That's fine. No,
overkill here.
building 2 is tall. Building 2 is 100% tall. I don't disagree with you. You know, it looks really tall. The ceiling heights in the lower level are about 16 feet. That's for the retail space, and then the apartments are above that. But you need to remember that is in a flood zone.
I'm well aware of the pond.
Yeah, they had to lift the building at least 4 feet to get it out of the flood zone.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it from the street, Citibank is a lot higher than Valvallis.
The curve,
and
yeah.
says. Right, there's a big difference in grade, and that is the flood zone it's like elevation 15. To be regulatory, it has to be a foot above that. So that's why the building is taller. They're allowed 3
Of course,
stories.
we had the flood we've got the pond underneath the ground and
1.2 million gallons.
didn't quite work.
It worked.
No,
It worked.
it worked.
It was designed to work.
Yeah, it worked.
Oh, well, I know that wasn't the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I know it was-
I'm serious, I'm glad you brought it up, because I said the same thing, but everyone needs to remember that that's in the flood zone, and the building got lifted out of the flood zone. We did the same exact thing down in the bay. All those houses got lifted 4 feet.
Steve, so what kind of outreach happens like for all of the residents on West Avenue before this project progresses? Are they given like a mock-up to sign off on?
That was approved in 2017.
Right,
So that's been in the process for 5 years.
I
right.
think she's asking for, you have to notify neighbors within a certain radius whenever there's like a variance. Is there something similar for a new project coming in? Are they required to notify neighbors of the project?
They're required to notify neighbors of the project if they do a change use or it's a public hearing. If it's a public hearing, yes. They did come in to us, federal did, in being specific. This goes back to what I said at the beginning. There's a lot of this outdoor dining. Inside the project, I think the number is 15% open space, where there's open space that are sidewalks and driveways and paths and eating spots in the middle of the project, which is the best example for you guys or for everybody is Grove Street Plaza. That piece at Grove Street Plaza is open space, and it's actually controlled by the town of Darien. Inside the federal project is open space. So they had to come back to the town and say, we have a restaurant that wants to encroach on the open space and have that as their dedicated space for their tables and chairs and whatnot, which it might have been the coffee shop or it might have been the ice cream shop. So they had to find other space to put that. That was a public hearing, and the town, all the town residents in that area should have been notified. Was that a public hearing? No, I think that was a general meeting item. That was a general meeting item, so that it was not, they did not get a certified card in the mail, which is one of those green cards. If they do come in with a public hearing item, which is a change in the zoning code, every neighbor will be notified about that. So some of the changes are done, there's 3 ways to do it. It's either administratively, it's either a general meeting item, or it's a public hearing. So the public hearing, everybody has to get noticed. That's the highest level. The administrative stuff is when Jeremy says, yeah, you can put a tent in your backyard and you can, you know, have a restaurant there. That's going to be done administratively. The general meeting item, it's on this agenda, which is published and posted and sent out by everybody, but the neighbors do not get a physical mailing in the mail. So within 150 feet of the federal project, there's got to be at least 25 houses, right, on both sides.
I guess I'm just asking, when do residents really know what this project is going to look like? To Seth's point, and first of all, let me say that I've talked to a lot of residents over there. They are in favor of it, but I feel like it's one thing to get a piece of paper that says there's a hearing, and there's another thing to get a piece of paper with a mock-up of this is what it's actually going to look at. Do they ever get that second piece of paper that gives an indication of what it will really look like?
In the case of federal, the artist renderings were done in 2017. They were very, very specific, and everybody in the area got it. I don't
Okay.
think they get it, but it's at a public hearing and it's displayed. The world's changed from 2017 to 2022 relative to the Zoom meetings and all that stuff.
Okay.
All that stuff is online in today's world. In some of the old world, if you walk down the hall, you can see the federal plan sitting in front of Jeremy's office in front of 213. You know, back in the old days, which is only 5 years ago, people come in town to look at it. With regards to the Corbin District, if you guys remember, he had a couple meetings of the Corbin District. He had plans that went out like this, which is one-dimensional, and it really doesn't help you. They took the time, effort, and money to create a mock-up model, and that model sat in town hall for 6 months. It was in the lobby. It was in the lobby of 6 months, so that was really what it was, and you could look at it and say, oh, I live here, and that's gonna be across the street from me, because I remember with the Toy Man guy, he came in and goes, that's gonna be my store right there. And he looked at the model, and he goes, I'm moving right there. And I said, oh, okay, you know, that's what he said. So it depends. Federal did not do a model. I bet you a nickel, and I've not been into David Genevieve's office recently, the new office, or his office, he was there. But that model is probably sitting inside his office. That's the Corbin District. I hear you 100%. I think the federal one is more visible. It's also bigger. It's also under construction, and people want to know. They do have a webpage that's up and running. They do have an Instagram page, which is up and running. People can either click on that or get it. I mean, I get their Instagrams all the time. They're pushing the information out. I mean, this meeting just, for us, is kind of quote-unquote, I would say, free advertising for them, because we're talking about it, and you can go on it, and the leasing office is gonna open. If you Google, I think, Darien Commons, it comes up. And that's everything right there. It's not gonna have, you know, this building's 34 feet high, and the ground floor is 18 feet high, but it has a lot of information on it. It also probably says, space for lease, call this phone number.
My second question, sort of related to that, is I feel like these overlay zones or these special permits, this is really where the change will happen for a project. And I feel like residents don't really realize that that's when the decisions, the very important decisions are made. How do we push that information out to the public to let them know this could be potentially a big change? Any major change in an overlay zone where it's landed on someplace, and we can talk about that next on my list, is 3 parklands.
we created an overlay zone to be able to change, and we just did it again last night, to be able to change something from designed office to designed residential. That was an overlay zone that was created 6 months ago. And then it can land someplace. There's also an MU overlay zone in town where the town can say, we want to put an overlay zone on my house. And you can land it on my house. The neighbors get noticed for that. Once an overlay zone gets put on something, most of our overlay zones have a second or a third step, which is the special permit step. The special permit, after you get the overlay zone, then you have to have a special permit which deals with health, safety, and traffic. And all that stuff goes up. All those notices go to all the neighbors in the area. Is posted on all the web pages. It's posted on probably TV 79, covers everything, and it's also noticed in the Darien Times. I mean, I live with this stuff every day. You know, I know about 90% of the stuff.
Right.
There's 10% I don't know. I would like everybody to know everything. I think the town in itself, and I think P&Z in itself, and I think the newspapers in itself have done a good job on trying to get the information out. I don't think Federal or Palmer's or Corbin takes out a full page ad in the Darien Times to announce it. You know, I don't know, and no offense to Darien Times, I don't know how much circulation they have in the paper copy. I read it cover to cover. A lot of people read it online. I mean, we as a P&Z commission try our best and do all the legal things that we're required to do to get the information out. And we can talk about this at another time. They get phone calls and questions in the P&Z office every day, all day long, about questions of things that are happening to there. And they spend a lot of time answering phones,
Right,
answering those questions.
all right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think I did those two. What else do I have? Okay, 3 Parklands is the next one. 3 Parklands is next to 1 Parklands, which is the residence at Selleck Woods. That was a 50,000 square foot office building, depending on how you measure it. We approved that last week to be able to raise the office building and make it into a 60-unit apartment building with 8 affordable housing units.
When you say raise, you mean tear down as opposed to elevate?
Correct, yes,
Okay.
RAZE.
Thank you.
We did that once wrong in the building. They said a house in the Bay was gonna be RAZED. And I said, oh, really? Knock it down? And all of a sudden I lifted the house.
I wonder what the impact is gonna have on the Board of Ed.
So it's all these things are about the same. So 3 Parklands was approved. That was an overlay zone that was put on that.
Excuse me, what is an overlay zone?
An overlay zone it's a floating zone that you're allowed to put on, it has to be established, and you're allowed to put it on a spot where you think it is useful. Once an overlay zone, because right now, I mean, downtown, let me give you an example. Or an MU zone, right? Ox Ridge is in a residential zone. It's an R40 zone. So you can only put single-family houses there. They put an overlay zone on top of Ox Ridge called an MU zone, which is municipal use, to be able to allow the schools to go there.
Got it.
All the schools have an overlay zone on them. All the fire department buildings have an overlay zone on them. I don't think Post 53 has an overlay zone on it. And what it does, instead of being our single-family zones, you can only build on 20% of the lot. At Ox Ridge, they're building on, for argument's sake, 30, 40% of the lot, because you have fields. That's why there's also open space there. But that's what an overlay zone is. With regards to changing office buildings and to residential buildings, that's something that's been going on in the region for years. Stanford just approved it again in one of their bigger projects. Stanford's a lot bigger than the town of Darien. I don't really want to compare us to Stanford, but Stanford's done it. And other bigger cities have done it, where you have office parks that are now in the outlying parts of town and are not really used. And the example that I gave one of our last meetings, which is High Ridge Office Park, which is at the top of High Ridge Road at the Merritt Parkway. There's a 700,000 square foot office park, and they just put an overlay zone on that to convert it to residential.
Got it.
Because
Okay.
the project's 30% empty.
So
Thank
Steve,
you.
when you created that for Parklands,
We created it for the town.
You created it for the town, so any other office building is automatically,
No.
They have to apply separately. So
Yes.
we have the precedent, but we don't
Yes.
have the definitive, okay.
Correct. You apply to put it on a building. Once, there's two things. Once you can apply to put it on a site or a building that is designed office and is gonna get designed office residential. That's the name of the floating zone. You can apply to put it on there. Then once you apply for it, that may get approved, it may not get approved. Then after it gets on there, if you want to build an apartment building on there, then you go into the next phase, which is a special permit.
Okay.
You have to be able to prove that it's not going to affect, not adversely going to affect traffic, it's not going to affect health and safety, health and safety, and other items that are in a section of the zone called 1005.
Okay.
So it's a multi-step process. I think we started on 3 parklands in July. I think it's going on for, I think it's July of 2000. I think, no, it was December, it was long. I think it was July of 2021. It's been going on a long time. So I'd say it's what, 9 months, something like that. It's not like, we move really slow. Nothing gets done fast. Obviously, this started in 2017. It's 5 years later. So that is 60 parklands. That was a long set of meetings. It was a lot of stuff that we worked on. We looked at everything, and all the sign-offs were done by that. The Architecture Review Board looks at a project like that too. Love what they designed, and also the Environmental Protection Commission, because it's right next door to Selleck Woods. The people from Selleck Woods were excited about it. They approved it also. And that's Selleck Wood Dunlap, which is a private public entity, which is the Parks and Rec Commission, or Parks and Rec Committee, and then also the land trust people, because those are all the neighbors. The other neighbor is Interstate 95 and the truck stop, which is owned by the state of Connecticut. That's on the south side. They get notified, but they don't really hear anything. The other thing that's important for us is we are going back in person for all meetings in person on April 5th. We kind of sort of wanted to do it last night.
I thought you were doing in person now.
Well, I'm always in person. I'm in the meetings with Jeremy in Town Hall, but we're, as per the governor's order, I think the governor's order expired when? Beginning of March?
Not yet.
Yeah. We
April,
So,
22nd. Still trying to figure that out, yes.
So we're going in person. The difference between P and Z, and I don't know, I'm not 100% sure the selectmen or the Board of Finance or the Board of Education, we have a 2-week notice provision. So I thought we were going to be in person on the 8th. We couldn't because we didn't notify the residents that it was 2 weeks. Then the next meeting, which is the next one up, is March 22nd. The 2-week provision, we already sent out the notices. They're going to be on go-to-meeting. So the next one that we can do it in person is April 5th. So on April 5th, I was told that this room's big enough for us.
We don't have any space restrictions anymore?
There's no 6 feet either?
No.
Okay.
I think your only issue on April 5th is going to be who takes precedence for finance or planning and zoning. So negotiate.
Well, it is budget season, so they could have it.
We are voting on the budgets that night, so.
We'll go
The auditorium will be available.
Right.
we'll go to one night. I think our next choice, and I'm not sure who books the rooms, our next favorite room is 119. And then I think we go to the auditorium. The
Yeah,
auditorium.
Parks and Rec books the room, so.
Yeah, the auditorium, the acoustics are tough. That's the big deal about that one. So I'm kind of excited about that. The other thing, that's another one that I hope that the Board of Finance likes. October 1st is the date of the grant list, and a lot of these projects will be online on September 30th. So your
That's
grant
good.
list, it's like this.
And a
smile.
jump.
That's good for that's good for all the taxpayers. is what that's
It's good for next year.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's good for
It
next
is.
year.
The
Yes.
It's good for
October-
23, 24.
Yes, the October 1st grant list, 2022, is certified in December, January of 2023, and the tax bills go out in July of
Right.
2023.
So,
it's
yeah,
next
so all
year.
the things that are gonna happen before October 21, 22 impact the budget we haven't started yet.
Correct. So I would like everyone to have their stores and buildings open by September 1st, so they can make the grant list. But I'm in the development world myself, and in the sales world myself.
That's
There's a
why
lot-
that October 1st date.
There's a lot of people that close their deals on October 2nd, because it's gonna be last year's grant list.
Well, but, you know, depending on
Right,
how far
right.
along you are in a process, the assessor does have the ability to do partials.
100% agreed.
Yeah.
100% agreed. The only difference is, and it's not what we don't have that here, and you're 100% right, is in the sales business, if you're gonna sell a $100 million building, and it's the reval year, you kind of sort of want to do it on October 2nd versus on September 30th.
Yeah, so it doesn't
Because you
impact.
can only change your building value on the grant list during the reval year. Relative to construction, you know, when you pull the building permit on your house, you know, if you start the work finish the work September 30th, your tax bill on October 1st is going to reflect the new kitchen that you just put in your house. That's the way it works. The other item, and I'm sorry I'm taking so long, is last night we closed the hearing for a proposed Montessori school that's going to be over at 76, or it's proposed to be over at 76 Tokenique Road, which is right at the base of exit 12. If you're coming off on the south side, it's near the entrance of exit 12 when you're going on, heading north, and then, which is really east, which is really north. And it's on the other side, heading south. It's next door to what was affectionately called the Italian Deli. It's basically a two-story building with a full basement that was called Torrenti.
It's that kind of unoccupied office building.
It's been unoccupied since the day they built it. And it was never built there. So there's a Montessori school, which is, I think, a national organization that would like to take control of that building and put in, I think it's 4 classrooms for 56 kids for the first year. And then if they get certified Montessori, they would go up to 78 kids. I'm 90% sure that's correct. We had 2 traffic studies done on that one. And the 56 going to 78, yeah. We had 2 traffic studies done on that one. We also really reached out to the local traffic authority, which is basically the police department and the police commission. There's a queuing issue there. We talked about this at the beginning with regards to the Goddard School. We redesigned their queuing, so it's a long thing, and everybody who has a kid that's gone to the high school or gone to the middle school, those queuing lines are long. There's not really a great queuing situation at that building. They've designed it where there is a queuing situation, and there was also what they call a valet parking thing. The police commission and the local traffic authority said that they will not allow them to do any queuing on Tokenique Road.
And that's a state road, so does the state have any input on that?
We refer all that stuff to the state, and I can't honestly recall, I'm sorry, that if they came back with comments.
I just meant whether or not they get a say.
Yeah, I mean, we get stuff from the state all the time, and they write a nice little email, and the last sentence says, we have no comment.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if they commented in on that, but again, this is something that has the ability to serve a need in town for a Montessori school, of course, Seth. And it's not been approved yet, but the hearing was closed last night. Yep.
So, but it doesn't just serve the town of Darien, I'm guessing.
No, it'd be.
It's regional.
I think it's the first one in the state.
Yeah, right. So there are gonna be people navigating I-95 at 8 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, if you're coming from the south.
Whoa.
If you're coming from the south and you're coming from Greenwich to the Montessori School, you get off at exit 12.
Yeah, that'll be
take
okay.
A left and a left, and you're in there.
Yeah, it's coming south. It's
Yeah, if you're coming.
if you're coming from Trumbull.
Right, if you're coming from Norwalk going south. and
No,
get
you
off-
bet.
You're
It's
getting
gonna
off
be
by
murder.
Rory's, or by Dutchess. You're gonna go through our beautiful town, stop at all the shops and the restaurants, get a cup of coffee, drop off your kid at school, and then get back on I-95.
And then go to the sports shop.
Go to the sports
do some
shop.
shopping.
Okay, good
Okay.
plug for Chamber of Commerce. What's the timing on that?
I don't think that school will be, I thought they want to be open for this school year, which is September 2022. They said they're rolling. I don't think if they get approved and they get their construction permits, I don't foresee them opening until January 2023. So in terms of timing, they were probably a year ahead of the Goddard School,
Okay.
but that's not been approved yet.
And Goddard Palmer's, is that completely approved?
That's completely approved.
Okay.
I can't confirm it, but I'd venture to guess they're out seeking construction financing right now.
Okay.
And the only last thing on my list was Oxford School, and you already talked about that. I think they're doing great. I think the building looks beautiful. I think they did a great construction job, and I've not heard one issue relative to anything here. That's me.
I'm on that building committee. There were some challenges around Eversource and a utility conduit early, but the AP got a workaround, figured out a workaround, and there's a building committee meeting going on right now. But I think we also did, the committee and that team got ahead of the procurement challenges facing a lot of construction projects. And that's not to say that it's all tied up with a bow, but most of the major materials were procured.
Yeah.
So we think that's being well managed.
Yeah, along those lines, and I apologize if I can talk for another 2 seconds. Relative to long lead items, for example, over at Federal, the windows that they ordered take 16 weeks to make them. So if you order them today, you got 16 weeks out, which is what, 4 months? So there's certain things that and the town is on top of it, and ARB is on top of it, and P&Z is on top of it. There's red tape there, like if they want to change the color of the windows from white to black, they need ARB approval before they can do that. And if they don't get it, if they get held up, then the 16 weeks comes longer, and that pushes everything back. They did have, I know Federal per se, those guys, they had a lumber problem with the trusses, which are the A-frames that come in on the tractor trailer. They couldn't get those for a while. Federal's a pretty big company. I was shocked. I was there days that those trusses came in, and I've not heard one issue with that. The only thing I have heard is people that budgeted and priced out their products 2 years ago, though you can throw those construction budgets in the garbage. That doesn't mean anything.
I have one addendum to my report. So, and it was triggered by your comment on the auditorium having audio issues. Channel 79 had a technical issue last night, so we had video but no audio. And so just as a report, we asked the speaker to submit her testimony in writing. She has, and that will be attached to the minutes for the meeting. So the public that wants to read what was said will have the opportunity to do so.
So the audio was out for the whole meeting?
Yes.
And when did you learn that?
Well, first of all, the meeting lasted, I think, 7 minutes.
Right.
And we learned it as soon as the meeting wrapped.
Okay.
So they didn't really have a chance to fix it before the meeting was adjourned.
Yeah, and as you know, one of the items on the list for consideration for the ARPA funding is a project to improve, do improvements in the auditorium that would allow for more things like the TVs and virtual meetings and better meetings in general.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys, relative to our funding, that can really be done, but Westport's using their ARPA funding, $150,000 worth of it, to do a study for affordable housing for a project they've already geared up in their town. So the only thought I had was relative to things like that, and also sidewalks. I don't know if that money's been spent or what it is.
We have almost $1 million in the current budget for sidewalks, and we've been funding sidewalks at a very.
Yeah, I don't mean to pick on sidewalks.
Yeah.
Don't mean that.
I think the ARPA committee did a good job of looking at projects, infrastructure projects that would benefit the town as a whole, and some other capital projects that would benefit the town in all as a whole, but some of them are going to be more visible than others. The general public is not going to see the lining of the sewer pipes under Old Kings Highway South, but they're going to benefit from it.
Right, yeah.
But they will see the improvements to playgrounds and firehouses and things like that.
Yeah, and then we're working on that affordable housing study.
Yeah, and we can send you the ARPA list, so you have it.
It's on the web.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's things called push-pull. I'm a push guy, not a pull guy.
Well,
That's
Steve,
okay.
Steve, one last question, going
Yes.
back to the beginning, with these outdoor dining, just fill me in, so do we have a blanket, anybody that wants outdoor dining for this coming year, it's approved, or do they have to come specifically before?
They have to come specifically before. There was a list of the restaurants and the people that applied for it last year.
That had to, last year, okay.
Jeremy's gonna email everybody from last year that had it, They will still have to apply administratively, you can get approved administratively for the outdoor, for the P&Z piece. With regards, again, to the building department piece, they have to go to the building department for that piece.
Right.
With regards to the health department piece, I don't know if David Knopf's gonna be involved or not.
I don't know that there's, I spoke to him about the bodega one, I don't know that he has a role at
Okay,
this point
I don't
because
know
of the
either.
distancing.
Yeah, and then with regards to the liquor authority, I mean, I heard the governor did something relative to that, or maybe it's in some pipeline or in some bill.
And the two that want to use town property will come before you.
Yeah,
Okay.
but like the list, like I said earlier, included, the ones off the top of my head were Giovanni's as a restaurant. I don't know if they ever did it or not. Nino's Pizza, and then Rory's. Those are the three most visible ones. They will have to come back, and they have another one. I think it goes from April 1st to Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Is what the permit period is. Okay. Thank you for everybody's time.
Thank you for a very thorough report. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Seth?
What email address?
Your RTM is busy. All committees full bore on the town budget. So doing a great job. Everybody's involved, and it's good to see. At the last RTM meeting, which was at the end of February, the RTM approved and did not reject the town employees contract. We did an adjustment to the RTM voting district boundaries to conform with the state redistricting. The gerrymandering that went on in the northern part of Darien in District 1 was an atrocity. It was an outrage, and it put a lot of pressure and made some things very difficult for our registrars of voters and for the town clerk here. And I think we've solved the problem, but what they did was unconscionable, I think. It sliced up the northern part of District 1 into little chunks. Not good. Anyway, and we approved a new truck for the library because it takes so long to get one. We just went ahead and did it early in a sense, so that they could get out and that we could approve the money so that they could go out and get the truck. A new backstop for Baker Field, we approved the money for that so that the next door neighbors can not have baseballs flying into their property, hopefully. I don't know how old that backstop is, but it's got some age on it. And we did, drainage. We appropriated the money for a drainage study for Tilly Pond. So those things are nits, but they're important, and we just sort of got it all done. The Rules Committee on Monday night approved TGSNA to have a public hearing on the Muni Code's degenderification of the town code. After the public hearing, then a final doc will be put together and brought to the Rules Committee, and then the Rules Committee will put it on the agenda of the RTM for approval. For the upcoming meeting of the RTM on March 21st, we have approving the appropriation for the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, affectionately known as ARPA, $6,430,414.32. We have to approve the appropriation ahead of time so that you can go out for bids under it. If you can't go for bids if you don't have the...
Can't do anything.
Can't do anything for the town administrator. So that's the big piece of business really on the upcoming RTM agenda. Coming up next, in the next RTM meeting, will be some funding or approval of funding for the Triple H Building Committee. Again, the same idea. You've got to approve the money before you can go out to bids on it. And so we're anticipating that that will be ready, that those numbers will be ready so we can act on it.
Steve, you mean Seth, you mean the Hindley Homes and Royal?
Yes, Hindley Homes. and-
That's Triple H?
Triple H, yes.
That is not Royal and H.
So, at any rate, yeah, the Hindley Homes and
Royal.
Royal, excuse me, 2 H's and an R. So that's sort of, that's what's happening with the RTM. We will, if I had my druthers, we'd have a face-to-face meeting of the RTM at the May budget meeting. A lot of that hinges on technical capabilities in the auditorium and any pronouncements from the state. We've got orders from the governor, orders from the legislature on what you can do at a meeting and what you can't do. So, and at least as far as the RTM as a whole meeting face-to-face, I think we wait to hear from the state on that. As far as the Rules Committee, well, we'll have some discussions with them and see if I can get them to meet face-to-face perhaps here. Not a lot of support for that in the Rules Committee, so I guess.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if the legislation,
See if I'm any good at sales,
I think
if the
you are pretty
legislation
good at
expires,
sales.
you're going to lose the right to have a fully electronic, at the end of April. So,
So it's not permitted by state law anymore?
not to
No.
have it like fully electronic. Hybrid is allowed under FOI, but then there are certain, your committee's supposed to have rules in place.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that if the commission wanted to allow someone to be quote-unquote hybrid,
Yep.
that was permissible.
It is permissible, but you should have rules in place, around it, because, discussions about how you're gonna vote, what do you do in an executive session.
Right, yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if these rooms, we did that once, when it
Mhm.
was 5 of us had laptops up there, and it didn't work.
We're working on making this room more capable. We have piece of equipment coming next week that will provide the camera that can see the board. But one of the bigger things, I think, for any board that wants to do a hybrid meeting is you need to hire somebody to manage the virtual portion of the meeting.
Yeah.
That the staff that is staffing your meeting can't do both. So like Jen cannot sit there and assist the board in their work and manage whoever's remote and showing up on the TV. You just can't do that. And especially if you allow public interaction, you really need to
You're
have.
required to. Yeah,
No, you're not required to allow public comment. Maybe
No.
the RTM.
RTM,
But
yeah.
like the Board of Finance, for example, outside of the public hearing, they're
Right.
not obligated to allow for public comment.
No.
You're obligated to allow public to be present,
Yeah.
but not to speak.
Which is the way we're operating now. Pretty much, we do allow public on an item that's up for vote in the RTM, but not in the Rules Committee.
So can I ask a question?
Mhm.
With regards to hiring a person, we have now, I think, someone from TV 79.
Yeah, you've been hiring somebody, yeah.
Is that the
That's
last
what
sentence
I'm
person
talking
named
about.
Christian? I think that's the name that was up on the screen.
Yeah.
We said, can you give Bob Madison the rights to be a presenter? And he said,
Yeah,
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 that's the person that we quote-unquote hired?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
okay, thank you.
And then, of course, we don't have any money. I don't know how that,
Well, the RTM never has money, so.
But you're in charge of them.
so that's it.
Okay, any questions for anyone else?
I think I'm good.
Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seth? Dan, all in favor?
All right,
Unanimous.
thank you.
Great meeting, thank you, everyone.